What's up, everybody? Welcome to Make Things Tiny. My name is Mick, and today we're talking about a new tiny house community that just opened up not too long ago in Virginia. I'm talking to Stephen Harrell. Stephen is the owner of the tiny house community. It's called Mountain Haven Tiny House Community. Stephen's also the owner of Tiny House Listings, which is a fabulous resource I suggest that you guys check out. Stephen's going to talk about their backstory. They're going to walk us through sort of the process for joining the community. They're going to go over the lot rent, all of that information. So this is a really great video for those of you who want to go tiny but aren't sure of two things: who can build your tiny house and where to put it. They sort of solve both of those sort of problems for you, or they sort of answer both of those questions for you, because they're going to build your tiny house for you and they're going to put it in their community as well too. So this is a great video for those of you who are interested in going tiny but don't know where to start and have like a bunch of questions too. So I'm excited for you guys to learn more about this community and hopefully find your new home. Before getting into the conversation with Stephen, I just want to say, for those of you who are new to the channel, please do take time to subscribe. It helps me out a ton. It helps me to sort of like grow the community that I'm creating here of wonderful people that love all things related to tiny houses here at Make Things Tiny. And if you tap the notification bell, you find out when I drop new videos, and I drop new videos every single week. So, all right, let's get into it. Let's talk about this new tiny house community. I'm here today with Stephen Harrell. Stephen is the owner of Tiny House Listings, which is a wonderful website for buying and selling tiny homes. That's a great resource I've used myself. And then now Tiny Mountain Haven, which is a new tiny house community in Virginia. Thank you so much for being on the channel, Stephen. I'm excited to just learn more about you and hear about this community. If you don't mind just talking to us a little bit about your background, what got you into tiny houses, why you started the community, that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, back in 2008 when there was the housing crisis, I was, man, that makes me sound old. I was, living in Denver, and I walked away from a loft that I had there, and I got I'm just going to go through it real quickly. I got a foreclosure on my credit. So then I moved here to North Carolina, and I'm thinking, oh man, I want to buy a house here, but I had bad credit. So I started looking in to tiny houses, and I came across Tiny House Blog. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that was the original source for tiny houses. That was really pretty much the only source for tiny houses back then. And so I reached out to the owner who became a mentor to me, Kent Griswold, and he kind of put a thing out there because I was starting tiny house listings at the time. I was very inspired. I'd go there and click refresh every day, waiting for him to do another tiny house. I was so enamored with it. And so, that was really the only source. And there really were no tiny house building companies. So every now and then you'd have a DIY person or whatever. Long story short, that's really what got me into it, was a foreclosure. So that was like the worst thing that happened to me, while also being like the best. So it was definitely a blessing in disguise.
That's really awesome. I think that kind of speaks to like just the benefit and the role that tiny houses are playing like currently in the housing market too, though, because a lot of people they're downsizing either because they want to, because they want to live like a slower pace of life, or because they have to, because it's just too much to keep up with, the cost of mortgages and property taxes and that sort of thing. So I think that's a really cool entry into the industry, even though it was a tough situation to be in.
Yeah, it used to be more of like a conscious decision, in my opinion. When I was first getting involved in it, it was people like who wanted, for whether it's environmental reasons or to have more time and to downsize their belongings. But now what I'm starting to see is more people doing it because of market conditions and, the increasing amount of housing costs or whatnot. So you start to see a lot more people who wouldn't consider tiny homes, who are actually considering it now simply because of economic reasons. So
yeah, no, that's for sure. The people I've talked to, they're definitely just like, I just don't want to have to worry about my overhead, and they want to make sure that they can get into a house and then just stay in that house. Especially some of the people who are older, they want to just be able to stay in it, put it on a piece of property, and just not have to worry about it, and just kind of relax into their older years. So that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so tell us about the new tiny house community then. What sort of led you to create that, and how's that been going? I know it's relatively new.
Yeah, so we started building tiny houses in 2020, a little over a decade after we started Tiny House Listings. And then COVID kind of struck, and so we kind of slowed down our building. But now, since 2022, we have been ramped up. We built over 150 homes here in Wilmington, North Carolina. We have a pretty big operation. And so we're building so many tiny homes, and there's still a lot of people having issues in terms of where to park it, even though you're starting to see a lot more communities come online. And so our thought was, why don't we start purchasing communities, and that way we can take it from our building facility, set it up correctly. That way it's less back and forth people to worry about, because as far as zoning and all that stuff is still a big chore to try to figure that all out. So if we can figure it out for our customers, take it directly from our building facility and then send it straight to one of our communities that we own, it's a win-win for everyone. And so that's kind of the main reason we started getting into tiny house communities. This is our second one. The other one's still being developed, and we're looking into buying more in 2024, 2025. But we found this one through it used to be an old campground.
Okay.
And it was from the 70s. I actually have a picture of the guys back in the 70s. They got like the disco hair and everything, and they're like cheers into a beer, like in 1974 or whatever, when they first developed this old campground. So yeah, we're doing a lot of work to make it better, to bring it up to tiny house standards, because people who live in tiny houses are a lot more discerning. They want to definitely see some nice amenities there. So that's definitely what we're working on. But yeah, that's kind of the backstory for why we decided to get into tiny house communities and Mountain Haven.
Okay. And when did Mountain Haven like officially launch?
March 2024. So it's brand new.
Cool. Yeah, very new. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many people do you have in the facility, like in the community now, and like how many spaces are available for people that are watching?
Right now, there's only 3 people, and 4 more people are moving in June. We have 14 spots available now that are full service, but there's 60 overall. So in 2024, 2025, yeah, it's going to be a bigger one. But the other ones only have water and power. Because like I said before, it's kind of like a campground. So people would bring their RVs in, stay for a few days, and then pump out, right? So there was no need to put sewer in those. But, you know, obviously with a tiny house community, you need that. So we're going to continue to develop the rest of those other, what would that be, 46 spots, and make those all full service as well.
That's awesome. That's really great. It's cool that you're able to have that much land too and that much space. So I think that is something that people are looking for, like a bigger sort of community feel, especially if you're going to move into a new place and you don't know anyone.
Right.
So I think that you're solving a lot of problems that people are having for sure. I think that a lot of people hesitate on tiny houses just because they don't know where to put it.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people in the area are telling me, "Oh, there's a housing shortage here. That's so awesome you're doing that." But I'm thinking, there's a housing shortage, affordable housing shortage everywhere, right?
Yeah, period.
Yes, in period. So I just don't get it. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. And then, you know, if you look in that area, you go up and down the Appalachians or whatever, the zoning and the building restrictions are way less, right? So that's another reason we got really drawn to that area, because you can kind of, for the most part, do what you want. Of course, once you get into a community setting, like for example, ours has a well, so you have to have special things in place for that. And, you know, like the drinking water has to be tested, you know, monthly and things like that. But yeah, the reason we were really drawn to the mountains as well, because there's very minimal zoning and building restrictions.
That makes sense. That's less of a hassle for you all too.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you sort of walk me through the process for signing up? So like for people that are watching, they're like, okay, I love this. Like what do they do? Like if they don't have a tiny house, like what's the process for them signing up to join?
It's a little different with ours because we're a builder, and we, for now, currently the only people that are allowed to move into our tiny house community are ones that we build the tiny house for.
Okay.
And so there's several reasons for that, but we can ensure there's a high quality in the tiny homes. They're all financeable, which a lot of people are wanting, and they're also certified. All of our homes are certified. So the process is you buy a tiny house from us, we build it, or we actually have a tiny house inventory as well. So either way, we build it or take it from our inventory, bring it to the community. We require a background check. We require a rental history check, credit check, and an employment. We need to make sure you have money to pay for your lot. And the main reason we do the background check is we want to make sure that it's a safe community and everyone's kept safe, so nothing slips through. And you have to have insurance on your house. So that's basically it. You buy one from us, we set it up, you do the background check, and you sign a 1-year lease. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's not too bad. I think that also solves an issue too. Just the fact that you can build the house for them as well too. I think that's helpful for people, because I think a lot of people, it's just a pain to figure out who builds it for me, where do I put it. You have to sort of like deal with all of that. So I think that that's really helpful. So they go the route. So they go to you and they're like, oh, I want to live here. So then they go and they do the house part first, and then you get them set up with the location, the lot.
Yeah, that's it. And we've had everyone so far has actually driven through the community before they committed. Everyone that's living there so far, and we just say, look, pick the spot that you want, right? And then here's the ones that are available. And that's been the process for everyone who's moved in so far. So it works out great. And, you know, we can get into that a little bit. I can't remember what the questions were, but
sure.
There's, you know, we're adding in a lot of amenities and making sure that we're noticing everyone has a dog.
Okay.
So we're building a dog park there as well, because it's very important that people can let their dogs run around as well. So
That was actually my next question. What sort of amenities do you offer? So we can you sort of kick that off.
Yeah, no. We can go into that. Like I said, this used to be a campground. So there's a huge building there that has like, I think it's like 12 showers, 6 female, 6 male. And so we're gutting that out and we're turning that into a community center. So that'll be really cool because the main reason we're doing that is because in the very center of the community, so people will be able to go in there and watch TV, hang out. There's a huge pavilion behind it. And we're going to set it up in the summer months. Once per month, we're going to have a local band come in and play
Cool.
music and concert for everyone. So that'll be really fun. But yeah, then, we're having walking trails, dog park. There's already raised bed gardens. We're adding a greenhouse. There's blueberry bushes growing. There's a fishing pond there. It's really nice. It's going to be a nice community when it's all said and done.
That's awesome. I do feel like there's like a new wave of tiny house communities coming in that are trying to offer more amenities, which is great because I do think people are hoping to settle down. So with the longer term leases, I think that gives people a bigger sense of community because I have talked to people who are like, I don't want to move into a place and not know anyone and like just feel like uncomfortable or unsafe. So the background check, I think, takes care of a bit of that. I feel like the fact that you guys are sort of on the ground with it, building the homes, you have like a different sort of stake in it as opposed to if you weren't building it and it's just the land, then you're sort of like bringing the tiny houses on. So I think that's really great that you're going to create like a neighborhood sort of like atmosphere for people.
Yeah, I've stayed in many tiny home communities that have Airbnbs or people invited me to come check it out. And the one thing that I've noticed in almost every community is that you see people who live there outside talking to each other. Right. Or, I know there's one where the women who live in the area, each day of the week, they would host other people who live there and have tea on their front porch or whatever. Right. And I think that's the one thing that's very, very important with these communities is a sense of community. And, so, and for us, we prefer people to stay long term and not, have that revolving door of people coming in and out because then you actually feel like you're in a neighborhood. You feel like this is where I belong and everyone else here feels the same way.
Yeah. I really feel like it's the future of housing. Do you feel like, are there going to be opportunities for short-term rentals? Like if people want to come and stay a night in like one or two of the homes and like check it out, if they're like sort of like unsure about making the move, or will it only be long-term?
The only way we would do that is we figure out a way to separate the long term and the short term. Coney Bell, I'm sure you're familiar with them. I had someone that worked for me that lived at a Coney Bell, and he was giving, explaining the frustration he had behind that, where they had the Airbnbs and the long term intermingled, and so the next day he was trying to get up and go to work, but there's people outside of Airbnb at 1 a.m, singing songs and, having a fire or whatever. So there's different reasons for being there. But so long story short, if, we do plan to have Airbnbs, but we're going to try to separate them from long-term people.
That's a good point because I'm thinking about like if the person if like in the building next door to mine was all short-term rentals, I probably wouldn't be too happy because you just have too many people coming in and out and you can't really control for who they are or what they're doing or how late they stay up and all the noise and stuff. So yeah, that makes sense. I could see where you'd want to separate them.
Yeah, just say you had a long day, you come in from work and then there's people, of course it's great to be on Airbnb and, but you want to come home to a nice quiet atmosphere, right? And so that's kind of like the main benefit of separating everyone.
Yeah, no, for sure. That makes sense. What do you feel like has been the biggest challenge with building the community or just as you're sort of like enter into this new phase where you're focusing on creating more tiny house communities? What's sort of been the biggest challenge for you in that process?
The initial legwork for sure. Going back, doing your due diligence, trying to figure out what you can and can't do, working with the local municipalities, trying to get information, trying to set up the utilities, internet. There's 5 people I can order a dumpster from. Which one's the best, right? Like that's, we use Monday.com for our project management. And there's about 500 items that you have to go through to.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. But the thing is about, it's just like any other project you work on. Once you get past the initial legwork, then it starts to become more and more smooth. And and another difficult part was actually finding a suitable place to actually buy a tiny house community. There's a lot of investors who are coming in and noticing they can see the financial benefits of having this type of investment, right? And so it's becoming more and more difficult to find. And so that's some of the main challenges, finding a place and the initial legwork.
Hmm. That's a good point too, because if like an investor's approach is going to be different than someone who's a tiny house builder or someone who's really passionate about tiny houses, they're in the industry and they want to create a community. So I do see that becoming a bit of an issue because some of those investment firms have billions of dollars at their disposal to buy up land around the country, and land is definitely not something we're having an issue with in general in the United States. But I can just imagine what that's going to look like in the long term. I'm seeing a lot more investors buying up RV parks and stuff like that. So like I'm trying to pay attention to that sort of trend because I know that that's going to have a definitely like direct impact on the industry too.
Yeah, like here in Eastern North Carolina where I live, there's a moratorium on mobile home parks and RV parks. They don't want any new ones built, right? So
Oh
the
wow.
ones that are, yeah, so the ones you can do it, but there's so many hurdles that you have to jump through that it's
Hmm.
almost impossible. So it kind of turns people off. So to buy one like that I bought, the RV campground or whatever, that already had everything in place, the zoning, a lot of the infrastructure, it's really difficult to find one, especially someone like I've seen some of the interviews that you've had on your YouTube channel, and
Sure.
these aren't professional investors. These are people who just really want to help other people out
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
start communities. So, but the problem is those people don't have deep pockets, right? So it's getting
Right.
more and more difficult to have to find these types of investments.
Hmm. Do you think that that's going to be like a big part of like the future of tiny house communities? Like since you have such a long-standing history in the industry, what do you think is the future of what these sort of communities are going to look like? As I see more and more popping up, definitely in the South and the East Coast, like every few weeks it seems like.
Yeah, well, there's just a huge migration of people altogether in the
Hmm.
Southeast. People are coming from all over the country and moving here. There's good weather, and for whatever various reasons, people are coming here. But I think the community is, roughly 20% of people, based on my research, live in tiny house communities right now. That live in tiny homes. I think you're going to continue to see that number rise.
Hmm.
There are some really smart people in the tiny house industry who are trying to figure out ways to change the zoning nationally to where tiny homes are more accepted into just regular places other than just communities. But I think that still there's a lot of challenges there, and there's a long time before that actually kicks into place. And a lot of people who want to move in tiny homes don't have that kind of time. They have to go somewhere,
Hmm.
and they're having to downsize for whatever reason. So I do think tiny houses are going to continue to play more and more of an important role in actual parking for tiny house people.
No, I see that. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think the time is a big factor, which is why I think some people are trying to find builders that can build them a little bit quicker, so they don't have to wait 6 months or a year before the tiny house is built, and then also figure out where to put it too. But yeah, it's definitely creating a little bit of a tiered system where you're seeing more builders and like communities sort of like rise to the top because they have the ability to have like quicker production. But yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see what continues to happen over time.
Yeah, that's another thing we do. It's a little bit different subject, but we build homes to
Mhm.
have in inventory. And so like the main reason we do that is because there's a lot of people who need a tiny house right now. What we're seeing too, and I've seen this for many years, most people who are moving in a tiny house, there's some big event happening in their
Right.
life, whether they're getting an inheritance or whether, unfortunately their spouse passed or whatever. There's some big event that's changed in their life, and that's what actually decided to make them finally go for tiny houses. A lot of people have been looking at tiny houses for
Mhm.
years, and they're finally saying this is the moment. And typically, that's because of some big event.
No, that makes sense. And then there is that sense of urgency there too. Mhm.
Exactly.
Oh, I forgot to ask you, what is the cost if someone wants to move in? Like, what's the lot rent? What does that look like?
So it's $550 per month,
Okay.
and then there's a $75 flat fee per month for electricity. So
Okay.
that's it, and everything is included with that. There's garbage, internet, sewer. What else? Everything, all the utilities except electric.
Okay. And for people that are watching this video, which I'm sure they're gonna find really, really helpful, what would you say to those that are interested in joining a tiny house community, but they have no idea what are some of the key things for them to think about as they sort of like consider this transition?
Absolutely. One thing I would be very important, I think that you need to know is that to ensure they're doing background checks on everyone,
Mhm.
to ensure their safety. I think that's very, very important. I would also want to know if they're planning to raise the lot rent in the near future, try to get an idea of how much that's going to be and how regularly, because it's not cheap to move your tiny house to a community.
Okay.
There's a lot of costs involved, and to actually move is not exactly easy as most people think it is. So I want to make sure there's background checks. It's kind of something we touched on before. I
Mhm.
would want to make sure, me personally, I want to make sure that the Airbnbs or the short term are separated from the long term. And you definitely, whatever your situation is, we had one woman who had 1 in 5 cats. and she had 5 cats, and she wanted them to be able to be free range. We can't allow that because cats get on people's cars, they scratch them or whatever. So, you know, it didn't work out for her. But had she had not told us or not asked, that could have been a problem. So definitely make sure you have a set of questions ready to go before you move into a tiny house community and to see if it's a good fit for you.
I think that's really great advice, especially the part about the background checks. I don't know if most people think about that, but that's a really important thing. You would want that for any living situation that you're in. So I don't see why a tiny house community would be different. But yeah, I think that's really good advice.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. It's been super helpful for me, really informative. I'm excited for people to watch it and just learn more about you and learn more about what you guys are doing, and hopefully join the community as well too. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if they have any questions?
Just go to tinymountainhaven.com. That's the website for it.
Okay. Awesome. Great. Cool. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Hey, good luck on the YouTube channel. I wish you lots of success.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
You too. All right, that was my conversation with Stephen. I appreciate Stephen taking the time to sort of walk us through the process for joining the community, talking to us about the lot rent, which is $550 a month and what it covers, and then also talking a little bit about sort of like how intentional they're being around safety and creating a sense of community with the background checks and all of those different things. So this is a great community for you guys to check out. If you're in the area, I would definitely suggest just going and like driving it, like, you know, sending them email first and seeing if you can check it out, make sure it's a good fit for you, ask questions, reach out. The website link is in the video description. The link to their Instagram, tiny house listings as well too. So there are a lot of options for you guys, whether you want to get a brand new tiny house built or you can check out some of the homes in their inventory. So I hope that you guys reach out to Stephen and that you find your new home as well too. So thank you so much, Stephen, for talking to us. For those of you who are new to the channel, please take time to subscribe. It helps me out a ton. When you tap notification bell, you find out when I drop new videos. I drop new videos every single week. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to think tiny. I'll see you guys in the next one.